Domestic violence has spiked in Mexico before and during the coronavirus-related lockdown. According to a national network of women's shelters, calls for help were up to 60% in April. Even before the pandemic, however, women in Mexico felt under siege. In one of the world's most violent countries, women are raped, murdered, and kidnapped with stunning frequency, and the problem is growing. In our narrative today, a teenage girl encountered danger on an ordinary day in a crowded place, just a few dozen meters from her own home. The tragic case of young Mariana Baltierra in 2017 deeply impacted all of Mexico. Following the repeated rape and brutal murder of the 16-year-old humble schoolgirl near her home, it took over a year, extensive effort, and all available resources for the authorities to locate and apprehend the ruthless perpetrator. The most harrowing aspect of this tale is that the girl had known her assailant for a considerable period, and he instilled inexplicable fear in her, a fact she had shared with her parents on multiple occasions. The criminal had long fixated on his victim, drawn to her innocence and naivety like a magnet. Mariana's mother continues to blame herself for the tragic events. Could this devastating loss have been prevented? Let us delve into this complex case from the outset and endeavor to comprehend the essence of Mariana Baltierra. Born on October 24, 2000, in the Mexican town of Ecatepec de Morelos. In the state of Mexico, Mariana Jocelyn Baltierra Valenzuela was the eldest of two children in the modest family of Orlando and Sarah Baltierra. From her earliest days, the girl had to fiercely battle for survival, having been born prematurely with a critically low weight. Doctors had expressed grave concerns about her chances of survival, a fear they had conveyed to her parents. Mariana spent her initial 2 months in a hospital's specialized unit for premature infants. Her mother fervently prayed for her daughter's well-being, and her prayers were answered. The girl swiftly recuperated, gained weight, and by the onset of 2001, she was discharged home, where her parents joyously welcomed her for the new year. Despite her premature birth, Mariana did not suffer any lasting effects externally. She blossomed into a slender and beautiful young girl, yet her health remained fragile from an early age. Mariana excelled academically, possessed a remarkable talent for art, and had a deep passion for music. Known for her kindness, openness, and sincerity, she left a positive impression on everyone who had the privilege of knowing her personally. However, her modest and shy nature became more apparent during her teenage years. She had only a small circle of close friends, refrained from dating or attending parties, and had limited interaction with guys. Mariana preferred the comfort of her home, where she shared a close and affectionate bond with her family. Interestingly, despite her age, she appeared much younger, often mistaken for a 13-year-old when she was actually 16. Mariana's compassionate nature led her to dedicate her time to helping homeless animals, providing them with food, care, and finding them loving homes. It was during her high school years that she made the decision to pursue a career as a veterinarian, driven by her desire to professionally assist those in need. Concerned for their daughter's naivety and trust in others, her parents worried that she may fall victim to exploitation or harm due to her pure-hearted nature. However, one day, Mariana's intuition alerted her to a lurking and sinister threat posed by a mysterious stranger. The Baltierra family resided in a relatively peaceful neighborhood, where most residents were familiar with one another. Nevertheless, the presence of numerous stores and shops along their street attracted a significant number of migrant workers, some of whom resided within these establishments. Many of these workers lacked proper housing, and a few even struggled to find a place to rent. Naturally, among this group, there were individuals with a criminal history. As long as they fulfilled their work responsibilities, the store owners typically turned a blind eye to their past transgressions. Approximately 60 meters away from the Baltierra family's residence stood a butcher shop where Orlando and Sarah frequently bought their meat. The shop owner employed 4 workers, 2 locals who handled sales and 2 newcomers responsible for unloading, butchering, and cleaning. These new workers were permitted to stay on the second floor, which served as an attic. As Mariana grew older, her parents began sending her on errands to the butcher shop. During her visits, she often encountered Juan Cruz Quintero Martinez, an assistant worker who resided on the second floor. The girl harbored an inexplicable fear of Martinez, expressing to her parents that his gaze sent shivers down her spine. Despite Martinez's lack of inappropriate behavior towards her, Mariana felt uneasy in his presence. Concerned, Orlando and Sarah decided to handle the shopping themselves, avoiding any further visits with their daughter. Martinez was eventually fired for a minor theft, disappearing for a year. However, in the summer of 2017, he returned to the shop, pleading for his job back. Surprisingly, he was rehired and resumed living in the attic. On a fateful Thursday morning, Sarah's young niece was visiting, along with Mariana and her brother. Orlando had left for work, prompting Sarah to send Mariana to the supermarket for groceries and breakfast preparation. It is important to mention that Sarah rarely allowed Mariana to go anywhere alone. However, Mariana believed that she was old enough to handle the task, especially since it was daytime and there were many people around. Sarah gave her daughter some money and asked her to buy milk, eggs, and vegetables. Mariana, who was 16 years old, left the house wearing casual clothes, an old t-shirt, and pajama pants. The store was located just a short distance away, so it should have taken her no more than half an hour to complete the errand. However, an hour had passed and Mariana had not returned. Since Mariana had left her cell phone at home, Sarah became worried and decided to search for her daughter, carrying her little niece in her arms. She walked all the way to the store and asked the cashiers if they had seen a young girl wearing glasses. They informed her that Mariana had purchased the groceries 15 minutes ago and left. This caused the mother to panic, realizing that something terrible had happened. Sarah returned home, asked her son to look after her niece, and went out to ask neighbors, street vendors, and passersby if they had seen her daughter. However, it seemed as though Mariana had vanished without a trace. Sarah immediately reported the incident to the police and called her husband, who rushed from work to help search for their daughter. By the time the police arrived, numerous neighbors, relatives, and friends of the Baltierra family were already involved in the search. They contacted all of Mariana's acquaintances, searched the city streets, and posted flyers with her photos. Initially, the police were not overly concerned and asked the parents if Mariana could have gone on a date, met up with friends, or visited someone. The spouses firmly denied all inquiries, asserting that their daughter would never leave without informing them, especially since she only went to the store in her casual attire and returned with groceries, fully aware of her expected return home. Despite the presence of street surveillance cameras in the area where the girl disappeared, most of them were non-functional. A thorough search throughout the day yielded no results, and the girl remained untraceable. As night descended, anxiety and panic gave way to despair. The parents came to terms with the grim reality that they might never see Mariana alive again. The following day, July 28th, around 8 a.m., a shocking discovery was made in a butcher shop. A relative living nearby informed the missing girl's parents about several police cars arriving at the location. Without hesitation, the Baltierra couple rushed to the scene. Despite being denied entry by law enforcement, they refused to leave. After a brief inspection, a police officer summoned Orlando and disclosed the discovery of a young girl's body resembling Mariana on the second floor. Overwhelmed and devastated, Orlando was asked to identify the remains, while Sarah was advised against witnessing the gruesome scene. The sight of his daughter's mutilated body left Orlando in disbelief, shattered his world, and left him at a loss on how to break the devastating news to his wife waiting outside. The girl had been subjected to rape and other heinous acts, resulting in her tragic demise due to severe injuries. It would be more accurate to state that the assailant inflicted a deep wound on the girl's abdomen while she was still alive, leaving her in a vulnerable state to bleed out. The expert examination revealed that the schoolgirl's death occurred a few hours prior to her body being discovered on the night of July 28th. Consequently, she had been alive for nearly 24 hours since her disappearance, during which time the perpetrator cruelly tormented her until delivering the fatal blow. The murder weapon, a butcher knife, was found on the floor beside the victim's body. the shop owner stumbled upon the lifeless body of the murdered girl when he arrived for work in the morning. He explained that the store had a monthly sanitation day on the last Thursday of each month, during which it remained closed. On such occasions, the owner attended to organizational matters, met with suppliers, and submitted reports to the tax office, while his employees carried out disinfection and general cleaning tasks. Upon entering the store in the morning, the owner immediately noticed bloodstains on the floor. Initially, he suspected that one of his employees, who resided on the second floor, had injured himself. However, his horror intensified when he ascended the stairs and discovered blood-soaked men's clothing, a stained knife, and the lifeless body of a young girl surrounded by a pool of maroon. Furthermore, a significant amount of money was missing from the cash register, indicating that the perpetrator had taken it to facilitate their escape. Two men who lived and worked in the shop immediately fell under suspicion. However, one of them arrived for work an hour later, seemingly unaware of the gruesome events, and was equally shocked by the discovery. He explained that he had urgently returned home to another city the previous day, and his partner had volunteered to cover for him and handle the cleaning alone. The police concluded that the man's account was truthful, as there were no traces of him at the crime scene, leading to his exclusion from the list of suspects. The CCTV footage obtained from the supermarket, where Mariana had shopped on the final day of her life, revealed the presence of Juan Quintero Martinez, a man who worked at the butcher store and had instilled genuine fear in the girl. He followed her like a predator stalking its prey, leaving the store after her without making any purchases. Unfortunately, the trail of both individuals went cold outside the supermarket, making it impossible to piece together the sequence of events. Despite the presence of cameras, they were not functional, and there were no witnesses to shed light on the incident. Mariana's parents are convinced that their daughter would never willingly accompany this man, leading them to believe that she was forcibly taken into the shop. The question remains as to why Mariana did not cry out for help or draw attention from passersby and street vendors. Who exactly is Juan Martinez? Juan Quintero Martinez, aged 27, was described as reclusive and unsociable. He had a reputation for violence and sadistic behavior, particularly towards stray animals. Prior encounters with the police involved theft, harassment, and serious physical harm. Initially hired as an assistant at the butcher store in early 2015, Juan's work performance was satisfactory until mid-2016, when he was dismissed for stealing money. Following his termination, he moved back to his parents' residence in Ecatec de Morelos, where he lived with his ailing mother and aunt. Over the course of nearly a year, Juan engaged in a pattern of financial exploitation, theft, substance abuse, and physical abuse towards his family members. Faced with ongoing mistreatment, his sister eventually threatened to involve law enforcement if he did not vacate the premises. Juan, determined to avoid another encounter with law enforcement, obediently departed. With no other options available, he approached his former employer and requested to be rehired. Unfortunately for him, the owner of the butcher shop agreed, granting him a workplace and a place to stay in the attic, just as before. This took place in mid-June 2017, merely a month prior to the tragic incident. Juan diligently carried out his duties, but after about a week, he encountered Mariana, who had matured over the past year and was driving him to the brink of madness. The young girl herself avoided him and never visited the shop, yet Juan began to trail her on the streets, curious about her whereabouts and the paths she took. The other worker who shared the attic with him also noticed his disturbing fascination with the teenage girl and even attempted to jest about it, unaware that a gruesome crime would soon be committed. The search for the perpetrator, Juan Cruz Quintero Martinez, swiftly focused on him as the primary suspect in the brutal rape and murder of the schoolgirl. Every available resource was dedicated to locating him. Initially, law enforcement officers visited the criminal's residence, hoping that his relatives might aid in his concealment. However, the fugitive's sister assured them that he was unwelcome there and expressed certainty that her family would promptly turn him over to the police. The woman displayed no surprise at her brother's heinous act. Furthermore, she recounted instances of his abuse towards her and their elderly mother, including an incident where he menaced an elderly woman with a knife, threatening to eviscerate her like a pig if she didn't immediately provide him with money for drugs. Capturing the rapist and murderer was of utmost importance to the authorities, as Juan exhibited extreme aggression, violence, ruthlessness, and posed a significant threat to others. The stolen money from the cash register would sustain him for a considerable period, but no one could predict his future actions or whether he would commit further crimes after having tasted blood. Throughout the month of August, an extensive search was conducted in Ecatepec de Morelos and the surrounding areas in hopes of locating the perpetrator, as authorities believed he could not have gone far. Despite their efforts, Juan Martinez remained elusive. The news of the tragic incident involving the schoolgirl spread nationwide, prompting a collective effort from law enforcement across all states to track down the ruthless criminal. Despite the daily coverage on television, front-page features in newspapers, and posters plastered across the country, Martinez remained untraceable. A substantial cash reward was offered for any information leading to his whereabouts or capture, with the sum continuously increasing. However, even with the growing incentive, progress in the case was minimal. Martinez's lack of connections, social media presence, and use of technology made it challenging to locate him. After 6 months of fruitless searches, the reward was raised to $500,000 Mexican pesos, yet the murderer remained at large. It wasn't until August 2019, over 2 years after the crime, that Martinez was apprehended in a different state nearly 1,000 km away, thanks to the sharp eye of an elderly woman who recognized him on the street. Despite his notoriety, Martinez surrendered peacefully when confronted by authorities, bringing an end to the long pursuit for justice. After confirming his identity, the perpetrator was transported to Ecatepec de Morelos, where he carried out his heinous act. He was apprehended and placed in one of the city's correctional facilities, awaiting his trial. Finally, in May 2024, 5 years after the tragic incident involving the schoolgirl, the murderer and rapist received his long-awaited sentence. Martinez was condemned to a lifetime behind bars, with no possibility of parole. Furthermore, he was also ordered to provide 1 million Mexican pesos as compensation for the emotional distress inflicted upon the victim's family. The parents and brother of the late Mariana expressed immense relief upon the arrest of the perpetrator, as they knew he would no longer pose a threat to other girls. However, despite the life sentence and substantial financial restitution, the pain in their hearts cannot be erased. They will forever carry the burden of losing their beloved daughter and sister,